What's up, everybody? We're about to start up the Falcons podcast. Give me just a second. We're going to add in our folks on Facebook and on Twitter. And we'll get going there. And we'll get started as soon as they jump in here. All right. And we are live. Welcome in to the Falcons podcast with your host, me, Garrett Chapman, right here on Falcons on SI Network, and we are really excited to bring you some good coverage here today. We have another preview coming up right here, and we got a lot to get into here on the show because the Falcons have another divisional showdown. This one with the Carolina Panthers, the 0-2 Carolina Panthers, who I don't know if you've been following all this stuff on Twitter. They're very confident going into this game, and maybe it's just fan talk. Maybe that's all it is, but I feel like the Panthers are weirdly confident coming into this game for an 0-2 football team who hasn't really looked all that great, aside from a potential comeback against the Arizona Cardinals earlier last week. But I haven't been that impressed with what I've seen from the Panthers so far. I mean, call me crazy, but I mean, this is a team that the Falcons have still struggled with. So this is a game that the Falcons are going to need to mind their P's and Q's heading into this one if they want to come out and get a win. But welcome in. We have people starting to trickle in. Welcome. If you are a first timer here on YouTube or on Facebook or on Twitter, doesn't matter which or where, wherever you get your podcast, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Maybe hit the follow button at GChapATL on Twitter. That's the number one way to stay up to date on everything going on with the Atlanta Falcons. We do these podcasts all the time. We also present lots of football information over there on Twitter, and that's really the best way to stay in touch. But if you are on YouTube, it's the best way to get your podcast. So make sure to give us a subscription over there. It only takes a second, and it keeps the lights on here for us. But no matter where you're watching, make sure to drop a like. Make sure to hit that share button. Share it with your friends. Make sure to hit that algorithm. Trying to keep it in the family, and spread the love with this Falcons family. So welcome in. I got Dantes Jackson. I got Austin Lale. Hits me with a rise up. John Harrell Jr. says red zone offense. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that coming up here on the podcast today. Very important matchup here. Welcome in to everybody. Very excited to do this podcast here. So Austin, I'm going to start this off here. I'm going to take your questions throughout the show. So if you've got questions, drop them into the comment section. I'll try to get to as many as I can. I can't guarantee that I'm going to get all of them just because we get a lot. But I will do as many as I possibly can, just as we go along. So, and then I'm going to give you my big keys, big questions that I have for the Carolina Panthers and the Atlanta Falcons heading into this game on Sunday. Important game for both of these teams, but it's going to be an important one here. So let's start here with what Austin has to say. He says, any update with Troy Anderson? Would be nice to get him back. Yeah, it would be pretty nice to get this guy back. Divine Diablo has played in his place. I'd say Divine Diablo has done absolutely nothing to come off of the field. Troy Anderson is, at the very least, a very good special teams body that you can have in there, a reserve type of player. But he is on the reserve PUP list. And so he is going to be on the shelf here for the next 2 weeks. And we might be able to see him after the bye week. It is probably the earliest that we will see him. He didn't show up at all during training camp. He's going to have a lot of work catching up to do just in general. But I've been very pleased with what I've seen from the Atlanta Falcons at that interior linebacker position. Caden Ellis is one of the leaders of this defense. Divine Diablo has been one of the most pleasant surprises for folks who weren't at camp all summer. I've been pounding the table for this guy all summer long, and I think we're starting to see that come to fruition on the football field now that football is here and back up in action. I do want to remind everybody that stars are the number one way to support all Falcons and help us bring you more and more Atlanta Falcons content. So make sure to do that, especially if you're over there. No matter where you're watching your podcast, if you hit us with 5 stars, if you're over there on Spotify, hit us there as well. So excited to do that. So John Harrell, I'm just going to go ahead and jump into this. This is one of my big questions here for the Atlanta Falcons coming into this game is red zone offense. We talked about it on Tuesday. It is one of the more important things that this team needs to address coming into this divisional matchup, because these types of games have a tendency to come up and bite you in the butt. And Tori McElhaney actually had a really good quote. She pulled a stat, and basically it's not a crazy thought necessarily, but points come at a premium, and you need to take full advantage of every single opportunity that you have. It's something in the range of Like every single football game this year, it's like an average of 6 points or something that separate each of these teams. And that's not a surprising stat, but it just reinforces the thought that this team needs to take full advantage of its point scoring opportunities. It means not scoring 15 points on field goals. That's point blank simple. That is the number one thing that this team needs to do offensively. Finish in the red zone. And you're going to have a difficult test coming up with the Panthers. For as decrepit of a defense as they were last year, a lot of that had to do with the fact that Derek Brown wasn't taking snaps for this team last year. And now they're up to something like 10th or so in red zone defensive efficiency. Falcons are 21st in that same metric on offense. So you need to see more success there. And it just comes down, we talked to Zach Robinson about that a little earlier this week. He said it has a lot to do with execution, specifically on second down, because this team has been in a lot of situations where this team is sitting in third and long. And third and long in the red zone is a death sentence generally, because you can't go over the top very effectively. And then you still got to go pick up the sticks. And it's very difficult to pick up third and longs, especially in the red zone. So the Falcons need to be more efficient on the early downs if they want to potentially jump on the Panthers early, because this is a Panthers team that I think is reeling to some extent. And I mean, they're 0-2. They're kind of playing desperate coming into this game because 0-3 is a death sentence in the NFL. If you start 0-3, you can all but kiss the playoffs goodbye. You can kiss really a successful season goodbye. So the Panthers are going to come in here and they're going to throw, they're up in Carolina, and they're going to throw every single bit of what they have at the Falcons. So if the Falcons can start early and jump on them fast, I think you have a chance of snapping their spirit and potentially taking full advantage of this game. But it starts with what you do in the red zone. It really does. And we went through all the stats on Tuesday. So if you want to go back and dig into that, you can certainly be my guest. And it's just not good enough. It's just not good enough. And we talked a lot about it on Tuesday, and that needs to be better as we move into the week. Austin Fries comes in and says, any updates on Pierce? DNP last couple of days with a groin injury. So it was just Wednesday that he did not practice. He was limited last week, just heading into the game. It didn't actually end up affecting his presence in the game. He got his first sack of the season, first sack of his career on Sunday against the Vikings. But he did not practice on Wednesday. He was a limited participant today. He was seen at practice. So that is your update. It is a positive update. And I would be very surprised if he is not going to be available on Sunday, if not a full go. Would be very surprised. It's not uncommon to see guys DNP on early in the week and then just kind of ramp up later. You saw it with Caden Ellis. He was also a guy who was on the shelf here at one point on Wednesday. You had a lot of starters actually on that list. Mike Ford just popped up on that list too. That's going to be one to keep note of. But I just released that injury report, so make sure to head over to Falcons on SI on Google. Just hit that Google button and check it out. Make sure to do that. And that's the best way to follow up and all that. I might drop it in the chat here. Actually, that might be the best way to do it. But I'm going to jump into my first big key, or second, I guess my second big key for the Atlanta Falcons heading into this game. And it's the explosive offense. Really, that's the number two thing I think that the Falcons are going to be looking at, because Raheem Morris, after week one, where you have 48 yards coming to your two running backs, your really good running backs, I would say the best running back duo in the NFL. Raheem Morris challenged this unit after that performance, and they delivered in a big way. 218 yards on the ground. Of course, Bijan Robinson, he wants to be called Bijan now. So I don't know if anybody's been following all this stuff, but Bijan, whatever it is. His mom calls him Bijan. He wants to be called Bijan. I'll call him Bijan. May just call him B-Rob like Michael Penix. But he was challenged, and he steps up. 168 scrimmage yards for him, 138 on the ground. He was as good as it gets. He showed why Raheem Morris says that he's the best player in the NFL. I may not be able to go that far to say he's the best in the NFL necessarily. I think he's got a little bit of ways to go, but he's somebody who you can absolutely throw into that category as one of the most valuable players in the league, especially on offense. But we talk about challenging in week one. If we're going to talk about challenging in week two, the red zone offense is one, but the explosive offense is another. That's been lacking this year. And Michael Penix is somebody who a lot of people really expected to come in here and just pick up where he left off last season. He averaged 10 and a half air yards last year, which would have been second among qualified quarterbacks last year. And he attempted a 10-yard pass or more on nearly 50% of his passes. 50%. That's crazy. But I remember talking about this over the offseason with you guys, if you remember. One of my big concerns is that teams are going to adjust. They're going to see what he does, and they're going to adjust. They're going to make changes. And through the first 2 games this season, that's exactly what happened. Zach Robinson said he was a little surprised even that teams are honoring his deep pass as much as they are. He throws a gorgeous deep ball. That guy's a pretty deep ball. But he's also smart enough with the ball that he's not just a gunslinger. He's not somebody who's just going to drop back and chuck it deep. He wants to play smart. And he said he would rather dump it down 10 times a game and win the football game than throw it deep and pick up some big yards and potentially put the ball in harm's way. I mean, I think the stat is that he's the only quarterback in the NFL right now, the qualified quarterback, who has not thrown a turnover-worthy pass. Maybe that's saying that he's gun shy this year. Maybe he's trying to be too careful with the ball. I'd say he's being smart with the ball, but just based off of things that I've seen, because he's not afraid to thread a window. He's not afraid to chuck that ball and put that ball on a string and zip it in there. You saw that actually on the play that Drake London fumbled. That throw from Michael Penix was gorgeous. That was a cannon of a throw. Very impressive. It was very impressive. But that's what he's capable of doing. And I think this might be the first time that we actually see him have an opportunity to do it. Because what you've seen in weeks 1 and 2, you have a too high safety look, right? They don't want to get beat over the top. This is not a Carolina Panthers team who's going to do that. They're going to play a kind of a cover 3 sort of situation, kind of like what you saw the Falcons do last year. And you could potentially hurt them deep. Very easily, you could hurt them deep. But Michael Penix, I mean, he hasn't completed a single pass over 15 yards this year. He was 0 for 10. Last year, he was 13 of 27. So it's just clear that teams are trying to take that away, but this might be his opportunity to do that. But on top of that, it's the fact that Darnell Mooney's back. Darnell Mooney is coming back into the fold, and he wasn't a really involved part of the offense on Sunday. But he's your primary deep threat. He's the guy who you really want to send down the field, and I think we're going to start to see that a little bit. I think he looked a little, not out of shape. That's not the right way to say it, but he just wasn't up to game speed. And it's because he hasn't been a full participant. Speaking of the injury report, this is the first time that he's jumped in and he's been fully healthy. He was a full participant today. And that tells me that this could be a really good opportunity for both Darnell Mooney and for Michael Penix on Sunday, especially against the Panthers team that was dreadful last year on defense, and especially dreadful against the run. So it could be one of those situations where the Falcons just say, hey, I dare you to stop the run. And they could turn around and hand the ball off, 40 times again. That's 31 carries last week off the top of my head. They could do that again. And if they run for 200 yards in a game, I don't expect them to run for 200 yards every game. Let's just be very clear about that. But this is a Panthers defense who's susceptible. This is a Panthers defense who is vulnerable to the run. And if they're able to taken advantage of that, and I don't see why they wouldn't do it, but what that does is teams are going to have to get up into the box. That opens things up down the field. So it kind of gives me some hope that this Falcons explosive offense in particular that we saw the potential of last season could take that next step forward in 2025. And I think week 3 potentially is the time to do it. But ultimately, this is a group that they can win in a lot of ways. They can win on the ground. They can win through the air. You saw Michael Penix said they got to have it drive against the Buccaneers. He will throw the ball down the field given the opportunity. It's just, I don't think he's had the opportunity yet. I think this is going to be that chance. So very excited about what they could do potentially, but that's our second big question. So number 1, what's the red zone offense look like? Number 2, what does that explosive offense look like? All right, we got 50, 60 people here, 70 people. Oh yeah, we're turning up to 70 people here across all of our platforms. Welcome. Thrilled for all of you to jump in here. If you have questions, if you have your big questions for what the Falcons need to address coming into Sunday, drop them in the comments. If you have a prediction, this is our final show before game time. If you got a prediction for the game, make sure to hit the comment section and we'll kind of get through it. I'm going to go through some of these. Here we go. It's at Gattabud. I'm taking ATL in my father-in-law's knockout pool this weekend. Pray for me. Gattabud, that's a great point here. I love the confidence. I think that's been one of the popular plays. I've started to see that league wide. 5.5-point favorites on the road in a divisional matchup. I think this is going to be a sweater. I think the Falcons, I'll do my pick a little bit later on once we finish up the show, but it's going to be tighter than I think a lot of people think. I think there are a lot of Panther fans who are very confident. There are also some Falcons fans who are getting a little drunk on what they saw on Sunday. I don't think that Falcons fans, I mean, look, there's a lot of reasons to be excited. A lot of reasons to be excited. I'm one of the people who were very excited. I'm very excited about what this team did on Sunday. But I'm also pretty realistic on the fact that this is a young football team and we need to see it consistently over the course of 17 games before I fully, well, at least the first half of the season, maybe even the first quarter of the season before we start seeing what exactly this team is going to be. We're very early in the year, but Sunday was a very exciting thing. So, but no, as far as survivor pools go, this is going to be a good week. It might be a difficult week. This is going to be a big outer week. I have a feeling that's what it's going to be because it's an interesting one for sure. If you have the Chiefs, I would probably take the Chiefs. They're 0-2 right now. I'm sure that's a team. They're playing the Giants this week. So if you want to take a look at a survivor pool pick, that's probably who I would jump on. Terry Clark sends the prayer emoji. What's up, dude? Or maybe that's high five. I don't know. Somebody tell me, is this prayer or high five? I think I've been told both. If it's a prayer, thank you. If it's a high five, what's up, man? Either way, make you fumble. He says, I'm here. What's up? Make you fumble. Let's keep on going through. That's going through. All right. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be Austin Lale. Here we go, actually. This is good. Look at you, Austin. Good job, because that actually feeds me into my next point. What is the status of A.J. Terrell? So if A.J. Terrell is not able to go, then you've got some serious questions right here. I'm worried. I'm really worried. Maybe more worried than a lot of folks are right now, but A.J. Terrell's status is something that is going to be something to monitor for the next couple of weeks because I don't think he's playing on Sunday. I'm just reading the tea leaves, just speaking through, just reading, trying to read what Raheem Morris is saying, just coach speak wise. He says he's week to week. That effectively tells me that he's not playing on Sunday. I don't think that it's when we move into week 4, then we'll worry about week 4. We'll see what the development is after that. But I'm just not very confident that he's going to play this week. And to your question, Austin, or I guess your comment about Tedero McMillan, the rookie Panther wide receiver. He's off to a strong start this season. Through 2 weeks, he's got 168 yards. He's been targeted 19 times, and he's caught 11. That's double anybody else on this roster. And Xavier Legette, I mean, specifically, has been dreadful. I think his average yard per reception is 0.1 or something, which is I'm told is not good. But it's Ted is going to be the guy. Ted is the guy that you have to figure out. Ted is the guy you're going to have to slow down. But to your point, the size gets me concerned. Tedero McMillan is one of the bigger bodies. I'm actually going to see how big is Ted McMillan. I'm just going to Google it really quickly here. 6'4". Yeah. So he's pretty big. And if you look at the competition, which Raheem Morris says there's definitely going to be a competition for the role opposite of Mike Hughes in the secondary, the size matchup doesn't really favor the Falcons at all. There's not even that it really does. It's really, really does not. D. Alford, Clark Phillips, Mike Ford, Natron Brooks. 3 of those guys are 5'11" or smaller. Mike Ford is 6 foot, but he's also not very big just in general. It's a little worrisome there. This is one where I think CJ Henderson could potentially step up. That's a veteran cornerback. That's a guy who's played across the league. He's made several starts. It's his former team. He's the bigger bodied cornerback that could take on a wide receiver like Ted McMillan. That's going to be a spot where I think he's going to potentially come in here and he could slide into that role. D. Alford was the guy who stepped in on Sunday, played really well. But I mean, you do have the one reception given up to Justin Jefferson. It was on the very last play of the first half. And I don't want to put too much stock into that. Largely, he wasn't credited with the target or the reception. I think that was given to Xavier Watts, who was the safety on the play, kind of got turned around. But that is one of those spots where look, you need to take away Tedero McMillan. Obviously, he's the top guy. And I get worried about a guy like D. Alford or Clark Phillips, who's largely been the reserve cornerback on this team. Natrone Brooks is kind of a Swiss Army knife. He's a do-it-all guy. Mike Ford's more of a special teams guy. But again, they were small. So CJ Henderson is probably the guy that I would push to or elevate to the active roster and kind of see what he can do in this role. But this is also a spot where I just don't trust Bryce Young. And maybe I'm alone on this. I don't think I am. But he's a third-year pro, and I think people are still waiting to see that jump. You saw flashes of it potentially down the stretch last season. He started playing with a little bit more confidence. He had the great game against the Chiefs. He had the great game against the Falcons. But this guy leads the NFL in attempts, and it's because their rushing offense has been, surprisingly not very good. Like they're running the ball just 81 yards per game, which is 27th in the NFL. That's just not what I expected from them. I thought that this was going to be a run first team. We'll get into why I think that is here in just a minute, but I don't trust Bryce Young. He leads the NFL in attempts, but he really doesn't have anything to show for it. I mean, he's 31st in the NFL in average yards per completion. He's still not completing 60% of his passes. He ranks 29th in quarterback rating. He has 3 interceptions on the season, and I'd say one of them went for a pick 6, and it flipped that game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I will say, to his credit, he hasn't looked quite as overmatched as he has at times earlier in his career, but I get worried if I'm the Carolina Panthers. But, I mean, Ted McMillan is going to be a very important person to follow in his ability to kind of shake loose, but it's still a rookie. It's still a rookie, and that's a guy who's going to be a bit volatile, but the Falcons they've already been burned by a rookie once this season with Emeka Egbuka, but that's with Baker Mayfield throwing the football. He threw some dots in that game. Those were perfect passes. I just don't think that Bryce Young is capable of doing the same thing. So it is a question for me, but I think ultimately it comes down to the fact that the best friend of a great second or just a secondary in general is a great pass rush. And the Panthers have a beat-up offensive line. They have a beat-up offensive line. And I think the Falcons have a really good opportunity to show that what they did against the Vikings was not a flash in the pan. What it was is a consistent standard that's going to be what defines the Atlanta Falcons in 2025. And it's on them to prove that last week was just not just a flash in the pan. Like I said, 5 sacks in the first half, 6 sacks overall, 11 quarterback pressures, 16 quarterback pressures and 11 quarterback hits. If you're able to do that and you keep Bryce Young in the pocket, you're going to dominate this football team. Or at least you're going to do a good enough job, and maybe your offense can find some consistency in this game that you were lacking against the Minnesota Vikings. Now, it's hard to say that you were lacking consistency when you rush for 218 yards. I think it's ultimately just the fact that the passing attack didn't really get going in that game. And then I'll come back to it again. The red zone offense just didn't fly. But no, I think that's going to be a really interesting thing. I know that's a great question there from Austin. And then we get Austin Fries right here. So another Austin can elevate CJ Henderson. That's my thought. That's my expectation is what's going to happen. He may not get the start. I would expect that I'd still say potentially D. Alford gets that start just because he's a veteran guy. He's a guy who's been with this team for a while, for whatever that means. I mean, he wasn't the guy for Jeff Ulbrich. So it's not really that crazy to think that they would come in and get the bigger, more physical player to just match up on Ted McMillan. But I think D. Alford's going to be a part of this equation. He's been here for a while, and I think Raheem Morris trusts him. Philip Walker comes in here with a question. Says, what do you think about Jalen Walker? He's pretty damn good. That's what I think. And I think on Sunday, you finally got your first look of what his potential really could be. He was kind of a fish out of water at times, but he was also injured a lot over the summer. So you didn't really get a great look at what he was capable of over the summer. He didn't have that little bits of development that you would have liked to see that James Pierce ended up getting, but he's fully healthy. He's fully able to get after the passer now. And he showed that he is quickly developing into a really, really talented player. He does get his first sack in this game, and it's from a beautiful edge rush there where he shows some gorgeous bend around the end, and he just lights up JJ McCarthy. But that wasn't I mean, but he also had several other plays where it's like he comes in there and he creates havoc in a backfield, right? He's making he's making consistent pressure, and I think he's taking that next step. Now, the next big thing for him is doing it at a consistent pace. That's what I'm going to be looking at here against the Panthers. But this is a hometown team for him too, so don't forget that. This was a spot that I really thought Carolina was going to take Jalen Walker. They turn around and go take Ted McMillan instead. But I thought Jalen Walker was going to go off the board here. So I wonder, it's his hometown team. So he's from Carolina. I think he grew up a Panthers fan. So maybe there's a little bit of animosity coming into this game. Who knows? Maybe it matters. Maybe it doesn't for him. But I think he's more worried about the football itself. But I think he's somebody to watch in this game just in general, just because as he continues to take that next step. James Pierce got a first sack. Jalen Walker got his first sack. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of these guys gets their second sack on Sunday against a team that's pretty susceptible to giving up pressures. All right. Mr. Smith says Xavier Legette is limited with hamstrings, so just let AJ rest. I'm not worried about Xavier Legette. I mean, he's a talented player. He reminds me of, when he was drafted at least, of what Deebo Samuel did for the 49ers. That was kind of his player comp. And he's a great athlete. He's somebody who's going to come in and what we thought was going to come in and be one of those types of players. And he just hasn't. He just hasn't. As far as starting wide receivers go, he's been one of the worst in the NFL. I don't think that his availability in this game is going to make the biggest impact on the actual outcome of what actually happens on Sunday. But this is a Panthers team who needs everybody they can get, especially the injuries have been piling up for this team. We'll see if he actually ends up playing. And I mean, if he doesn't end up playing, it's too early to say if somebody does or doesn't play. And I'm not fully familiar with what's going on up there in Carolina on a week-to-week basis. Floyd Donnelly says, let's go Rise Up. Me too. Yeah, Rise Up. I think I'm really excited. This is going to be a great opportunity for the Falcons. But keep on going through. Very excited. So make sure to drop your comments in here. Mad Scientist, I made it. LOL. I remembered. Welcome, Mad Scientist. Thank you for jumping in here. I mean, look, I'm starting to develop some folks. I know some people are starting to come back around. So big thank you to everybody who's made an appointment listening here. We do this every single Tuesday and Thursday starting at 6 o'clock. We go for anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. Depends on how many questions I get and how excited you are to kind of stay on and keep asking questions. So if you got questions, I'll stay on as long as I can and we'll go from there. But Mad Scientist, thank you for remembering. Appreciate you. Harry Marshall Wood, the second. I'm finally starting to remember the Tuesday, Thursday at 6. My guy, Harry Marshall, he asks a lot of great questions, and I'm very excited to have you back in here. Cody comes in here and says, I think he's good. I'm assuming you're talking about Xavier Legette there. But that team as a whole, terrible. It's a divisional opponent. It's a divisional opponent. So as terrible as a team is, as terrible as a team may be out of the division, that's a team who still will smack you around in division. The Saints can do it. The Bucks can do it. The Falcons can do it to anybody else, and the Panthers can too. You see it across the league. Divisional opponents know each other really, really, really well. They've played each other twice every year. I mean, there are entire portions of the playbook that are likely designed and saved for each one of these divisional matchups. They have stuff hidden, ready, in the chamber, ready to go. And I think that we're going to see different things from both of these teams here on Sunday. And both teams are going to give it their best shot. I mean, and I think that this is going to be a desperate Panthers team. They're going to be desperate. They're 0-2 right now. And they can't go 0-3 because Dave Canales, I mean, I don't think he's under any pressure I don't think he's on the hot seat or anything like that. Bryce Young is definitely on the hot seat. And I think that it was this time last year they got benched. And the Falcons are known for letdown games. To Jason Greenway, who just dropped the comment, says, please no letdown. I'll drop you up here right there. Yeah, please no letdown. Falcons, if you're a Falcons fan, if you grew up in this city like I did, you knew for a fact that this was a team who they would let you down. But this team does feel different. This team does feel like they have some horses. They got some guys there. They got some dudes who aren't going to do that. And I would fully expect them to come in and put together a pretty good performance here on Sunday. Mr. Smith comes in here and says, do you think the inability to throw deep is on O.C. Robinson or are wide receivers not getting open? I'd say it's a combination of these two things. The offense itself from Zach Robinson has left a little bit to be desired, in my opinion. I think it's very vanilla. Just in general, from what I've seen when I go back and rewatch everything. The rushing attack specifically is not very unique, I would say. The blocking pattern, you have no pulling guards and stuff like that, and I think it's very bland just in general. But when you run for 218 yards, I think that helps. But Mr. Smith, to your question, I don't think it's on Zach Robinson because you saw this team was able to do it last year. I think it's just the Falcons are taking what the defenses are giving them. And that's what he said this week. That's what Michael Penix said this week. That's Raheem Morris. That's what he said this week. They're playing two high safeties, and you know what you do when you see a front that has two high safeties? You turn around and hand the football off and you run the ball and you do it effectively, or you throw underneath and you take the yards that they're giving you. And that's what they did on Sunday. And that's what they did against the Bucs. They completed 23 passes. I think it was 23 of 30 on yards on completions under 10 air yards because they're dropping everybody back. And if you have all the bodies back there, why would you throw the ball to the bodies? And I think that's more of a credit to Michael Penix for remaining patient and driving the football down the field. And I mean, driving like play after play after play, not driving as in like taking shots. It's a credit to what his patience is. And that shows maturity for a young player. And I think that's been very impressive in general, but I do want to see selfishly, I do want to see some of this explosive offense. And I know that Michael Penix wants to cut it loose too. But I don't blame Robinson. It's also the fact that Darnell Mooney has been on the shelf here. And I don't think he was fully game ready on Sunday. That's just my opinion. He didn't say as much. Zach Robinson said he was actually impressed with what he was able to do. But he's still kind of getting factored into the offense. I didn't see his snap count. I didn't see that part of it, but I would have expected that he wasn't as involved as he will be later on in the season. And I think that's just going to continue to evolve. And a lot of it's just matchup based, like most things in the NFL. But the next big question that I have, and that's our big theme here. If you're just jumping in, welcome. My name is Garrett Chapman. This is the Falcons Podcast. We're doing a little quick preview here of what to expect coming into Sunday's matchup with the Carolina Panthers. And so far, we've talked about the red zone offense. We've talked about the status of AJ Terrell, and we've talked about the explosive offense, or really the lack thereof, that the Falcons have had so far this season. But then as far as the next big thing is, I mentioned this with the youth specifically, and these young guys that we have on this team, and what we saw potentially in getting too bullish on what the Falcons did on Sunday against the Vikings. It's the fact that there is a chance, there is a very real reality that the Falcons can come back down to earth. We talked about it with Jason, who just had a question. Please, no letdown. I'm not saying that there's going to be a letdown. I'm just saying that for as exciting as Sunday's win was, you have injuries on this front. You have injuries in that secondary. Yeah, lots of young players, right? You've got interior defensive linemen who are all under 3 years pro, right? Zach Harrison is the veteran really of that group. And you have Lakeil London and David Onyemata and guys like that. But I'm talking specifically about your top flight guys, the people who I consider to be your top flight guys, like Rukaroro, Brandon Dorless, young players. Your pass rushers, largely young players. Leonard Floyd's the vet. David Onyemata's the vet inside. Caden Ellis, Divine Diablo, those are vets. But you have a lot of youth. And the thing that you see with youth a lot is this. Now, I think that this Falcons defense is special. And I think this youth is special as well. And I'm not expecting it to happen necessarily, but it is a question that I'm going to have here, at least in the early parts of the season, until we see some consistency. It's just until it happens. I'm not predicting it's going to happen because I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Falcons defense is going to continue to shine. I said at the beginning of the season that this is going to be a much improved unit. It's way more improved than even I thought at the beginning of the season. I thought that this was going to be maybe a 16, 17, 18 or so defense coming into the year. Right now, they're ranking top 5 in just about every single major statistical category. They're second in points per game allowed. They're second in yards per game allowed. They're second in passing yards per game allowed. They're 9th in rushing yards per game allowed. They're 5th in EPA per play allowed. So the standard metrics they like the Falcons. The advanced metrics really like the Falcons too. We'll see. And look, you played 2 teams who in 2024 were 2 of the best offenses in football too. This is a Panthers team who can jump on you. They showed that they can. They had 41 points on you in week 18 in a gotta have it game. So this is a team who knows how to come in and beat the Falcons and mess around with them. But as far as letdown games are concerned, I don't expect it's going to happen on Sunday. But until we see that level of consistency, it's going to be something that we ask that question. every week. But I will say this about the Panthers injury report. And this is kind of what gets me excited about what these young guys can potentially do. Robert Hunt, he's their Pro Bowl guard. He goes down with a bicep injury. He's added to the injured reserve. Austin Corbett, he suffers an MCL injury. He's on the injured reserve. And this is already an offensive line that's been, I'd say pedestrian, not awesome. It's been fine. It's not running the ball well, like I mentioned earlier, despite having a very expensive stable of running backs behind him. They're not protecting Bryce Young super well. He's good with his legs, so he's able to extend plays, but he's been pressured at a high clip. He hasn't been hit at a high clip. He hasn't been sacked at a high clip, I believe 4 times on the season. But this is a special unit that I think has elevated and found its gear. It's playing with a lot of confidence too coming into this game. So we shall see what he actually ends up doing. But this is an injured front, and that kind of gives me some confidence in this Falcons defense that they're going to continue to do what they did last week. And we'll see what actually ends up happening. But I said it earlier, I'm not a big believer in Bryce Young until he proves me wrong. But my last big question, and then I'm going to jump into your questions. Last big one here for me is can the Falcons contain Derek Brown? He's a Georgia boy, went to Auburn, and then he got drafted in the first round to the Panthers, and since then he's been a thorn in our side. In week 1 against the Buccaneers, the Falcons struggled with Vita Vea. Derek Brown is another all-pro caliber defensive lineman, and his presence was really felt last year, but I don't think it's done as much to really help this Panthers defense, especially in the rushing attack. They're allowing 141 yards per game on the ground. They're 28th in EPA per play. The secondary has been a lot better, and I think it's because he can get up and affect passing plays very effectively. But if the Falcons can just turn around and hand the ball off a bunch of times in this game, then the Falcons they're gonna walk away with this game. That's the number one thing for me is if the Falcons can continue to run the ball really, really well, that's huge. And I think a lot of that comes down to figuring out where Derek Brown is at all times and figuring him out. And that Falcons interior offensive line, after struggling a lot in week 1, I really think they found their stride in week 2. Granted, against a pretty beat up front 7 for the Minnesota Vikings, but this is a group who I think can take the next step and continue to show that development. This is a good front. Ryan Newsel played a much better game against the Vikings. I think Matthew Bergeron, he's been fine. He's been a little up and down at times on a play-to-play basis. But good God, Chris Lindstrom just destroyed folks in Minnesota. He was a freak in that game, and he just had probably his best, even by far his best game of the season. Best game I've seen from him. But he's an all-pro. Like that's a guy who you're expecting to come in there and be a stud. But he'll have a big matchup coming up this weekend with another all-pro on a defensive line. All right, so we're going to keep on rolling through. I'm going to get to your questions now. So if you have anything, drop it into the comments section, and we'll try to get to it try to get to as many as we can. Cody hits me with the fire emoji. Appreciate you. Yes, sir. Mad Scientist comes in here and can't help thinking about how I hope our defense can play similar to last week from now on. Wouldn't that be something? I mean, you get 4 turnovers defensively. Well, 3 turnovers defensively, 1 in special teams, which special teams did not get nearly enough attention last week. I tried to throw them some flowers on Tuesday, but I'm going to do it again right now because you forced a fumble in punt coverage. Your kickoff coverage was fantastic. Nothing broke. Your punt coverage was great. You had the play that set up the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in week 1 that not enough people were talking about the shortcomings of that unit just in general. But the defense was fantastic and is led by a great pass rush that's finding its stride. It's that attack-minded group. But ironically, I mean, like the first 3 weeks of the season, you're starting to see this trend of NFL quarterbacks who can move with their legs. Bryce Young's another one of those guys. But if you're able to sack the quarterback, I think Falcons fans were not used to it, but they got their first real dose of what it's like when you can punch a team in the mouth and specifically sack that quarterback. It changes games because you affect his mentality coming into the next play. Now he's looking at pass rushers. Maybe he gets a little antsy. Maybe he starts seeing ghosts, to quote Sam Darnold. I mean, if you can hit the quarterback, it changes everything. And I think the Falcons got their first real look of what that could look like. A group that, I mean, this team has struggled to rush the passer for a long time. And I think we got some dudes now. So I think that's going to be something to follow here. Antonio Forte says Steel Curtain Monsters of the Midway, Legion of Boom, 2000 Ravens, and now the 2025 Falcons might just be building their own legacy in Atlanta. That's a high bar. I mean, you missed out on the 85 Bears, man. If you really want to make them full circle, hit all of the Purple People Eaters, everybody. We'll jump into the history books, Antonio. No, I mean, that'd be great. That'd be great. I think the Falcons have a long way to go before they get to that level. It's one great game, really two good games, I'd say, but one great game from the Falcons. Those teams did it and they won Super Bowls, right? You can lean on a strong defensive line. The Eagles did that in the Super Bowl last year. That's how they won the Super Bowl, for all of the attention that the tush push and Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley, and rightfully so, all the attention that those guys got. They won the Super Bowl because of their defensive line. That's why they did it. That's why they shut down Jaden Daniels. That's why they shut down Patrick Mahomes. It's why they won the NFC, and it's why they were the best team in the NFL, and that's why they're the best team in the NFL right now. Defensive line. That's it. And I think the Falcons are finally starting to see some of the fruits of their just putting in a lot of draft capital into getting these guys along the defensive line. And some of them are starting to hit now. And I think they're starting to see that. And I think guys like Zach Harrison are finally in a front that actually makes sense for them. Rook and Brandon, those are guys who sat on the bench and they really needed that redshirt year, and they've come in and they've been very effective. Very excited to see what we've seen from them so far. I'm not going to set that bar yet. I mean, we'll see. It's been a week, but I love your optimism there, Antonio. Jason Greenway says defense is running two deep safeties. Yeah, that's what we were talking about with the explosive offense, or really the lack thereof. If they're going to play guys deep, you're going to throw the ball short, and you're going to take what the defense gets you. I mean, Tom Brady did that and won 7 Super Bowls. You don't have to throw the ball down the field to win games. You don't have to. If the other team can't get the ball because you have the ball the whole time, you're going to win the game. Probably. I mean, assuming you can score in the red zone and your defense can make a couple stops, which, I mean, that's what the Patriots did for many years. That's really what made them special. That's what the Chiefs do. I mean, that's the crazy thing. People forget that the Chiefs were a team who aren't really that explosive. Like, their offense has been pretty pedestrian, but they hold on to the ball really well. They run the ball well, and they play good defense. Teams win that way. Lots of teams win that way. That's been the model of the NFL for a long time. So if a defense is going to give you that, why wouldn't you take it? Why not? You know, I'd like to see the explosive offense because it's fun, and I think this team is at its best when it is throwing the ball down the field and it's unlocking that explosive potential. But I mean, if you just matriculate the ball down the field, I think the Falcons are going to be fine to do that. Mad Scientist comes through. He says, also Drake and Mooney weren't 100%. Yeah, no, they weren't. Both of them were dealing with shoulder injuries. It's worth noting that both of them were full participants today. Drake was a full participant on Wednesday as well. Mooney, it's great news for both of them. So moving forward, I expect that these guys are going to be healthy and full contributors and ready to go. So I think we can potentially see the whole offense start to come together, and you got all your horses now. I mean, the only thing you don't have is your right tackle, but Elijah Wilkinson's been playing pretty well. He's been playing good. All things considered. I mean, you're never going to replace one for one what you got from Caleb McGarry, but I mean, 218 yards rushing speaks for itself. Jason Greenway says check down Penix. LOL. He was checking down early in the season. I don't think he's going to be a check down guy. He's not a check down merchant. That's not what he is. He's one of the best deep ball throwers, and we'll see that later on in the season. It's just based off of what we've seen, and I really fully expect the Panthers to throw everything they have against the run. That's the thing for the Falcons in this game. The Panthers are going to try everything they can to stop the run, because it's a death sentence to have 200 yards dropped on your head. If you run for 200 yards in the NFL, you're going to win the game. I would say I would rather run for 200 yards than throw for 400. Just plain and simple. It is the most valuable thing that you can do because you keep your opponent off of the field, you hold the ball for an entire period of time, and you tire out their defense, you make it effective, and that offensive line loves to run the ball. And that's the bread and butter of this team still. That's what they were built to do. Just going back to the Arthur Smith days, that's really what a lot of these guys are here for, and that's what they were very effective at when they were drafted. They run the ball really well, and that's why you go get a Bijan Robinson, right? So you run the ball well, and you take what the defense is giving you. But I think that the Panthers are going to do everything they can to stop the run, and the Falcons are going to take advantage, and they're going to punch them over the top. That's my expectation for this game. You're going to use their desperation against them, and I think that's what's going to happen. Derek Hughes, his Pitts has a toe injury. Yeah, he showed up on the injury report today. He was a limited participant. Actually, let me double check. Let me fully double check because I don't want to tell you wrong information. Kyle Pitts was a limited participant, and he showed up on the injury report for the first time today. If anybody's interested, I'm actually going to do this. So, dropping it in the comments right here. If you're interested, if you want to go check out the injury report, I just dropped it in the comments. You can stay up to date on everything that's going on there. Don't leave the podcast, but you can pull it open on another tab while we still chat. But yes, Derek, to your point, Kyle Pitts does have a toe injury. He did show up on that report. Also, Charlie Warner showed up on the report. He was a DNP for the second straight day. And I'm actually putting together this article on the way that the tight ends have really taken the next step just in general. And I think those guys have been a big reason for the Falcons' success. Charlie Warner had one of his worst games as a Falcon in week 1, but then he flips around and has a great game against Minnesota in week 2. And I think Kyle Pitts, he's doing the dirty work, finally. And that was the thing that a lot of people in that coaching staff were begging him to do. Get in there, block. Be a willing blocker. Not a good blocker, but a willing blocker, right? Don't just be that kind of whatever when it comes to blocking. Do the things you don't want to do. Get in there, do the dirty work. The rest of it will come. And now we're starting to see the fruits of his labor come out because now you can keep on the field longer. Because if he's not going to come out there and block, you have to take him down, take him out of the game in short yardage situations or plays where you need to run the ball. You don't have to do that as much anymore. So now he's starting to get rewarded with some additional shots. And I think he's going to continue to improve as the season goes on. I'm excited to see what he can do. He's in a contract year. He's fully healthy from that knee injury that he had a couple of years ago. I think he's now 2 full years removed from that, coming up here in October. So very excited about his potential in this offense, and he's playing for that next contract. And so generally speaking, when you see guys do that, they find that extra year. They find how good they can potentially be. And I think he's on pace for about 1,000 yards this year. Still needs to score that touchdown. We'll see if he can do that here against the Panthers, but he's still looking ahead to do that. So I'm going to take a quick water break. I'm going to take a quick sip of water. We've been going for about 45 minutes now. So I just talk, man. I love talking, but it's a pleasure talking Atlanta Falcons. If you have comments, drop them in here. But while you're at it, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Make sure to like the video. If you're on Facebook, we got a bunch of people over there on Facebook watching. If you're on Twitter, see a bunch of folks over there on Twitter. Hit that like button. Maybe hit that reshare button. Trying to bring in some more Falcons fans so they can jump in here on the podcast and kind of join in with us. If you're over on YouTube, share it with your friends, man. More the merrier. We really appreciate you. But give me 2 seconds. I'm going to take a quick sip of water. It's a sparkling water because I forgot to grab water. So give me a second. Perfect. Appreciate you. All right. Harry Marshall Wood the third comes in and says, we have a very high effort defense. I would expect our run game to be the primary mode of offense over passing. Passing the ball a lot get our defense back on the field quicker and negates them getting a breather to stay fresh. Yeah, look, you want to keep the effort that you have from the defense is noted. It's noted. And I think that was something that when we talked to Jeff Ulbrich over the summer, that's what he wants to do. And Nate Ollie, the defensive line coach, specifically said this. You have guys who he wants to go a million miles an hour in every single play because you're only going to get 2 or 3 plays. And then you're going to come on out and you're come back in. And we've seen that early. So as far as staying fresh is concerned, I'm not super worried about this team staying fresh because it's a heavy rotation. And that goes for the pass rush and it goes for the defensive line. Now, at the second level and the third level, you don't have that as much. Jesse Bates and Xavier Watts take 100% of the snaps. AJ Terrell / D. Alford in week 2. AJ Terrell took all the snaps in week 1. Mike Hughes takes all the snaps in week 1 and 2. And then Billy Bowman's basically, if he's on the field, he's taking all the snaps, right? If it's a nickel type of front. D. Alford's probably your dime package if you're going to bring him in. But you're not going to rotate as much there. But if you're in the trenches, which is you're probably running a lot more there, at least high effort types of running where you're running into another person's body. you have depth and you're rotating a lot. But no, to your point, I mean, like if you want to run the ball, if they're going to allow you to run the ball, run the ball. That's what it comes down to. CJ Trent says 1969 and fix that crooked ass picture on the wall. I don't know what picture you're talking about. Talking behind me? I think it's just your angle. This isn't crooked. It's just the angle. It's actually perfectly level. I think you're talking about that. And that's the old Fulton County Stadium, by the way. That was back when the Atlanta Braves were playing the Pittsburgh Pirates, and Sid Bream slid into home plate. But it looks crooked there, but it's not crooked. It's not actually crooked, I promise. Appreciate it. more than CJ Trent. No, I appreciate you, man. No, I promise you it is not crooked. It's just the angle. So John Harrell Jr. says 6 new players on defense, 7 if you add Dorless. Last year's defense made Young look like an MVP. Attack. Yeah. No, that's the biggest thing. Just keep on attacking. And I think Bryce Young is going to give you the football if you let him. He's going to make mistakes. It's just he's shown fully capable of making those mind-numbing mistakes in games. And it's on the Falcons to really do it. And yeah, I mean, it's a new look defense. It's a new type of front. They want to hit him. They want to get after him. And I think they're going to do that, especially with a patchwork offensive line for the Carolina Panthers, just after all of the injuries that they've been going through. But I mean, we'll see what actually ends up coming with it. But I think that the Falcons are going to find some success here in this game defensively. And I think it's going to continue on. Keep on rolling through. I say Cody comes out. I think that's a score prediction of 40-10. If the Falcons win 40-10, it's not. They're not winning 40-10. I don't think that. I can't predict that. I'll give you my prediction here in just a little bit when we get a little bit closer in. I do not think it's going to be a score like that. But Cody, I appreciate you dropping that too. So CJ Trent comes back in here. He says we have new edge rushers too. The Prince is coming for Penix's ass. Yeah. I don't think that that's necessarily going to be that sort of situation. Turns out you are a Panthers fan. So welcome to the podcast, CJ Trent 1969. He throws it in there. Thump Ransom is going to bang that ass up. Okay. Well, probably not. I mean, I don't necessarily believe in the Carolina Panthers and their ability to really affect the Falcons as much. I mean, the Panthers have improved defensively, and I think specifically in the red zone is where they've made their biggest strides early in the season. Ultimately, I think that the Falcons are just a better football team. I think that's just what it comes down to. And if what we saw early in the season through both of these teams comes to fruition, then I think the Falcons should win this game. I mean, 40-10 is ridiculous. I'm not going to say that. I think the Falcons should win. I expect them to cover. I think a score probably in the range. I'll just go ahead and give you a score prediction. We're already 55 minutes into the show, and you guys can tell me if I'm crazy or not. I would say probably in the range of 27-20 is what I would expect. Maybe a 24-17 or something like that. I think the Panthers are going to find some success like they did early in this or late in the season last year. They might get a couple of plays there, and I think Tet's going to get his. I think Tet's going to have a pretty solid game here, but ultimately, I think the Falcons are just the better football team, and unless the Panthers come in and play a desperate brand of football, then and it works for them, then I think the Falcons are just a better team. So CJ Trent, come on in on Tuesday. We do this every Monday or Tuesday and Thursday. I'll be back on Tuesday at 6:00. So if you think I'm going to eat my words, then come on back, and we'd love to have you. I appreciate all of the support from Panthers fans, Vikings fans like we had, Bucks fans like we had week 1. Appreciate all of you guys because you help our views, and we really appreciate you doing that. Leon Mapstone says, let's go Falcons. CJ Trent comes back in, says T-Mac going to have 400 yards. Okay. Appreciate you supporting the podcast over there on YouTube. I don't think that that's necessarily going to do that. Rusty Moore comes in and says, still don't understand the holding call on Elijah caused by an offsides by Minnesota. Do I not understand the rules correctly, or did the refs just get that one wrong? Raheem Morris actually put this in and sent this into the league office. I haven't heard an update on it. Rusty, that's a great question, and I think that's something that I know the Falcons had a lot of questions about it. I had a lot of questions about it. I know in the moment a lot of people did too. It doesn't make any sense, especially if that the I don't know who the edge rusher was. But Elijah, it was an unabated play to the quarterback. Like, they need to blow that play dead first and foremost. I don't know why they didn't do that. Elijah had to hold him because he was that far off sides and he doesn't want to give up a free hit on his quarterback. So no, I completely agree with you. I haven't heard an explanation yet, but we'll see what happens with that if there is an update coming at all. Jack49 says, do you think Penix is holding us back? No, I absolutely do not. I think Penix plays within the offense effectively enough. And I think he is a very talented player, but he's still a young player. So this is a guy that a lot of people put a lot of expectations on. I know I host a show on 92.9 The Game here in Atlanta, and I had several callers all summer long, all through the spring, saying that I was like, what are reasonable expectations for Michael Penix? And they were saying MVP. And I'm like, that's too much. I think you need to expect maybe 3,500 to 4,000 yards. I think that was probably something that makes a lot more sense for Michael Penix. And that's right around what he's on pace for right now. If he gets to 3,500 to 4,000 yards, we got spoiled here in Atlanta. Atlanteans got spoiled with Matt Ryan. He would give you 4,000 yard passing seasons every single year. And we got used to it. And it's not as common as a lot of people like to think it is. Now, I would say the last 4 or 5 years has been more of a dose of reality for Falcons fans, and they're excited to get back to it. And I think Michael Penix is a guy who can potentially in the future be a 4,000 yard type of passer, 4,500 yard passer. I don't think he's there yet. But I do think that not having your starting right tackle has hurt him in this so far early in the season to some extent. He's been getting pressure, and the Vikings found a lot of pressure on him early, but it's also because you have two of the best play callers in week 1 and week 2 going up against you. That's a big deal for teams. And he's playing within the what the offense is trying to do. And if you're going to turn around and run the ball a lot, then that's going to be if the quarterback's best friend is a really strong rushing attack. Michael Baxter says, he comes over there, drops a donation. If anybody comes in and does a star super chat, you jump right to the front of the line. You jump right at the front of the line. So, Michael, I really appreciate you, buddy. A little $5 donation there. I really do appreciate you, man. He says, is tonight's game between the Bills and Dolphins a make-or-break game for Tua and their coach? I mean, yes, of course, it's a make-or-break game for Tua and for McDaniels. But I also think the ship's already sailed on those guys. I think that season, their season's done. Let me look up their schedule real quick. And I know this is a Falcons podcast, so I'm going to come right back over to the Atlanta Falcons here in just a moment. I just want to ask that question. Speaking of the Panthers, they do have the Panthers coming up soon. They had the rally against the Patriots in week 2, but it's the Bills tonight. It's the Jets on Monday Night Football next week. Against Aaron Glenn and company, a team who I think is still going to be looking for their first win in the season. And then they get the Panthers. You know, I mean, there's a very real chance that he's fired by week 5. He's not going to be fired this week. He's not going to be fired this week, but I do think that it's not going to be good for what the Dolphins have coming up. And I think this is going to get ugly tonight. And I think that it's going to be kind of a bad game. This is a Dolphins team who largely does not play well against the Bills in general. But no, if anybody else has any questions, we're going to keep on rolling through. I see some more who've dropped in here. Robert Alcorn says on Facebook, he says, in game 1, the Bucs tried to take the run away. In week 2, the Vikes tried to take away the passing game. The Falcons can attack you no matter what you're trying to do. The Falcons should be 2-0. Yes, I've said it before and I'll say it again. The Falcons were the better team in week 1. Talent wise, I mean, they're on par with the Bucs. I think they're pretty close to it. The Bucs have more proven veterans. That's for sure. But I think the Falcons were a better team, and they won. That just the Bucs won the moments, and that comes down to catching interceptions. And the Falcons dropped 4 of them in that game. You got to be better at that. You got to do better, and they did in week 2. But the Buccaneers, I mean, they give them a lot of trouble, and it showed what happens if the Falcons don't have their rushing attack working. If they can't turn around and hand the ball off to Bijan Robinson 20, 25 times a game, then that kind of thing happens. And that credit the Bucs. They were able to do that very effectively. But to Robert's point, it does show me, and we talked about this morning on 92 on the Game with the morning shift. This gives you confidence that the Falcons can win in a lot of different ways. They can win if you try to take away the run and they force you to pass. Okay, fine. They got weapons at wide receiver. Drake London, Darnell Mooney, they can hurt you bad. Michael with Kyle Pitts, they can hurt you. They can hurt you there. But if you're going to try to take away the deep ball, fine. Turn around and hand the ball off to Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. That's the best running back duo in the NFL. Notice how I said the best. In the past, I had said one of the best, and it's 1A, 1B. They're better than Jahmyr Gibson and David Montgomery. I'm past it. Give me Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson. But keep on rolling through. I'll take probably like 3 or 4 more questions, and then we'll move along. Let me see. Mad Scientist says, I'm 51, been watching my whole life. Dominant defense is as fun or more fun than a scoring offense, assuming wins. Wins are more fun than anything. I don't care how they come, Mad Scientist. So I think that you tend to agree with that fact. I love defense. I'm not used to having a great defense here in Atlanta. I'm just not, and I mean, that's just kind of been the bread and butter. It's just having explosive offense and scoring 30 points and seeing if you can just score more touchdowns than your opponent can. But ultimately, I would really like to see this unit find its stride, and I think it really is because you finally have some of the talent to do that. Let's see. Robert Alcorn says the Panthers are weak against both the run and the pass. Without having a pass rush, I suspect Penix will throw for 250 and have 2 touchdowns. They've actually been very good against the pass this year. I think they're 11th in yards per game allowed, but specifically their 2 cornerbacks have been, and if you look at EPA per drop back and stuff like that, they've actually been very good. J.C. Horn is slowly becoming one of a really strong cornerback. They got another guy too. His name is escaping me off the top of my head, but they're both really ranked pretty highly. So both of their corners have had really good starts to their season, but their pass rush is bad. They have not really been able to affect the passer at all. So Penix will have time to throw. That's why one of my big keys was stopping Derek Brown, because if you can corral Derek Brown, I just don't see this secondary being able to hold up against really talented players in the Falcons wide receiver core. So I think that's why I think that this could be a potential breakout game here for the Falcons. Let's roll through. Jock 49 says we kicked all field goals. Yeah, and that's why another one of my big questions here for the Falcons was their ability to stop to score points in the red zone and to effectively do that. If you're going to do that, then you're going to win this game comfortably. So you need to finish off drives. You need to do that every single drive if you can. If you get to the red zone, you need to start coming away with touchdowns. Because I think they said at 21st in the NFL in NFL percentages and red zone efficiency. Panthers are actually really good in that metric. So Falcons have to do better. And that's what this game is going to come down to, finishing drives. But no, that's going to be it for us, folks. We've gone for about over an hour this time. Well over an hour. But we've had hundreds of people jumping into the podcast. Big thank you to everybody who donated a little bit of their time here on a Thursday night, but we're going to have a lot of fun here over the course of the weekend. So make sure to give me a follow at GChapATL on Twitter. I'm going to have a recap and everything else coming on after the game. We'll have more coverage coming for you. That's the best place to go get that coverage, or you can just head on over to the website, si.com/NFL/Falcons to get your Falcons fix there. Just Google Falcons on SI. That's another good way to do it. But Scott and Nick, they're going to be back with you on Monday morning. And then they'll be back on Wednesday. But I will be here every single Tuesday and Thursday starting at 6 o'clock. So set that reminder, a little mental note. And we'll see you again very soon. Start to see some regulars, which I'm really excited about, which starting to build a little community here. And I really absolutely appreciate all of you. My name is Garrett Chapman for Falcons on SI. This is the Falcons Podcast with Garrett Chapman. I'll see you all very soon. And until next time.